Disrespect, bro, when you in that prison, you better come on, bro. If the demonstrating for hustle, this is what I'm telling you. Don't come over here. Don't come over here trying to be. Then guess what? Go do something and come back.
New footage just hit the streets, and it's wild. Blacc Sam and Snoop Dogg locked in with some real heat, and you can feel that tension in the air. But this ain't the first time Sam's been in a face-to-face standoff lately, because not long before that, he had a run-in with West Side Crip figure rockstar 2800, and trust me, it wasn't friendly. So what's got Blacc Sam turning up like this? It all comes back to one thing: Nipsey Hussle's name. Now let's rewind. The moment between Sam and Snoop already had people talking, but to understand it, you gotta start at Marathon Burger. On April 17th, 2025, cameras caught Sam at the grand opening, a spot meant to carry on Nip's hustle and business legacy. But instead of a smooth celebration, things popped off. The footage shows Sam stepping to rockstar 2800 with that no-nonsense energy. No smiles, no small talk. Eyewitnesses say the vibe flipped instantly, like Sam was done tolerating any fake love around Nip's name. One person close to the scene even said Sam laid it out plain: if you ain't standing up and checking anybody disrespecting Nipsey's legacy, you can get gone. Period. It wasn't just a warning, it was a line in the sand. This wasn't just some random blow-up. Nah, word in the streets is Blacc Sam's whole energy was aimed straight at rockstar 2800, who's been linked heavy with industry shot caller Wack 100. And if you've been paying attention since Nipsey's passing, you already know Wack 100 and Sam been on opposite side, with Wack throwing dirt on Nip's name for years like he's been waiting for the chance. The clip from Marathon Burger shows Sam with that stone-cold look. No jokes, no fake smiles, standing firm for his brother's name like he's ready to check anybody. But here's where it gets grimy. The deeper reason for Sam's anger runs way past just rockstar 2800. There's a whole chain of connections that loops right back to Snoop Dogg. And it's tangled in loyalty, respect, and West Coast street politics. See, beyond Wack's mouth, there's another layer: Snap Dogg. Sam's got issues there too. And it all ties to a name that moves weight in LA streets and music world: Big U, aka Eugene Henley. This is a man with deep ties to both Nipsey and Snoop, a figure whose presence commands respect, but also sparks tension. Sources say way back, Big U and his circle had a heated situation with Nipsey over a track, and that bad blood never got fully cleaned up before Nip passed. So when Snoop kept rocking with Big U after Nip's death, it hit Sam sideways. Like, how can you ride with people who allegedly disrespected your own brother? In Sam's world, loyalty ain't a slogan, it's the code. And from his perspective, Snoop's continued link up with Big U feels like a slap to Nipsey's memory. And that's just one reason the air between them is charged with tension. This beef ain't just surface level. It's stacked up with history, grudges, and street politics that go back decades. Some OGs in the hip-hop game are saying this tension got roots all the way back in the Death Row era. Yeah, that same East Coast versus West Coast rivalry that had the entire culture on edge in the 90s, and some of those scars never healed. Suge Knight himself even put this on record. Tupac once tried to physically confront Snoop Dogg over what Pac felt was straight-up disloyalty. According to Suge, Pac was heated after hearing Snoop on a radio interview showing love to Biggie Smalls and Diddy, two faces of the East Coast opposition at the time. When Pac caught wind, he didn't waste time. Ran up to Snoop's hotel room ready to throw hands, feeling like Snoop had switched sides in the middle of war. So why does this ancient history matter to Blacc Sam right now? Because Nipsey Hussle wasn't just a fan of Tupac, he studied Pac's blueprint, lived by that independent hustler's code, and carried the torch for uplifting the West Coast community through real, unfiltered music. Nip saw himself as Pac's spiritual successor, and Sam, he's the guardian of that legacy. That means any perceived disrespect toward Pac, Sam's taking that as disrespect toward Nip too. And that's where the Snoop tension gets extra deep. Adding more fuel to the fire, Napoleon from Tupac's own group, The Outlaws, has gone public saying Snoop's so-called praise for Tupac was actually shade in disguise, claiming Snoop and others would act like they were showing love, but in reality they were sliding in sneaky disses, maybe even out of jealousy. This ain't just old drama, it's history repeating itself in the streets of LA right now. Napoleon didn't hold back. In another interview, He flat out said Snoop was jealous of Tupac's rise during the death row era. That claim only adds more weight to this long-running narrative painting Snoop as disloyal when it really mattered. And the plot? Oh, it thickens heavy. After Tupac's murder in '96, Snoop didn't exactly distance himself from the East Coast camp. Instead, his continued association with Diddy had hardcore West Coast loyalists side-eyeing him hard. To people like Blacc Sam, that kind of flip-flopping in the middle of deep street politics ain't just a bad look, it's a straight-up red flag. Fast forward to today, and Snoop's been in a string of moves that to someone like Sam just stack on the suspicion. One of the biggest? In January 2025, Snoop performed at a Trump inauguration party. Yes, that Trump, even after years of speaking out against him. Fans went into meltdown, calling it the ultimate political U-turn. And while politics might not seem tied to Nipsey's legacy, to Sam, it's deeper than that. Nip was all about standing on authenticity, never folding, and always riding for the community. So when Snoop makes a move that feels like it goes against those values, Sam's seeing it as another sign he can't be trusted on principle. Add to that the legal messes, like when Snoop caught heat in 2021 for posting a viral protest video without permission, and you've got a picture of someone who, in Sam's eyes, doesn't always practice what he preaches. And in a loyalty-driven culture, that's the type of thing that gets remembered forever. Even though some of Snoop's recent moves ain't directly tied to Blacc Sam, they paint a pattern. And that pattern clashes hard with Sam's laser focus on protecting Nipsey's legacy and everything tied to it. Which brings us to the actual footage that's got the streets buzzing right now. This wasn't some stage back and forth. The tension between Blacc Sam and Snoop in that clip is real. And it's not just about two West Coast names bumping heads. This is bigger. It's about loyalty, authenticity, and respecting the legacies that built hip-hop's foundation. To get why this is hitting so deep, you gotta look at their history. Crazy thing is, these two weren't always on bad terms. In fact, back in 2020, Blacc Sam and Snoop were cool. Cool enough for Sam to surprise him with a full marathon clothing care package, complete with a marijuana strain called Uncle Sam OG. Snoop even hit Instagram calling Sam his nephew and showing genuine love. So how do you go from that to this? A public moment where Sam's body language is saying he's got no respect left for Snoop? Something clearly shifted. And to figure that out, we gotta rewind. Not just to Nipsey's era, but all the way back to the '90s, when West Coast unity was already under pressure. That was hip-hop's golden era, but also one of its most fractured. The East Coast versus West Coast rivalry wasn't just about tracks on the radio, it was about territory, codes, and respect. At the center of the West Coast movement, Death Row Records. You had Suge Knight calling shots, Tupac pushing the movement forward, and Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre's protege, rising as one of the label's first breakout stars. And buried in that history are the seeds of the loyalty questions still haunting Snoop today. When Snoop dropped Doggy Style, it flipped the entire rap game on its head. Over 35 million copies sold worldwide. And just like that, he was a certified superstar. But the vibe inside Death Row shifted fast when Tupac walked through those doors fresh out of prison. Pac came in like a storm. Relentless work ethic, track after track going platinum, and taking the war with Bad Boy Records to a whole new level. He wasn't just part of Death Row, he was Death Row. That's when the cracks started showing. Multiple sources, and Suge Knight himself, have said tensions between Pac and Snoop were brewing beneath the surface. And then came the moment that blew it wide open. Suge says the real drama started after Snoop went on a radio interview and showed love to Biggie and Diddy, the same East Coast names Pac was going head-to-head with at the height of the beef. Back then, this wasn't a gray area. You were either riding with the West or you were the opposition. There was no middle ground. So when Pac heard that interview, he didn't take it lightly. According to Suge, Pac got so hot, he stormed down the hallway and straight into Snoop's hotel room, ready to put hands on him. This wasn't petty ego stuff. In Pac's eyes, this was betrayal of the entire West Coast movement. For Tupac, loyalty wasn't up for debate. You couldn't wear the Death Row flag and then turn around and dap up the enemy. That difference in how Pac and Snoop saw the code is what lit the fuse on a rift that's still casting shadows today, including over Blacc Sam's view of Snoop. There was another moment that cranked the tension even higher. While Snoop was in New York shooting the video for New York, New York, things got deadly. His crew was allegedly shot at, and whispers in the streets pinned the hit on Biggie's camp. For most West Coast loyalists, that kind of move would have locked your loyalty in for life. But according to some insiders, Snoop reacted in the opposite way. Instead of doubling down on the beef, he started stepping back from it, a move Tupac saw as pure weakness. And Pac didn't hide how he felt. Snoop later told Angie Martinez in a 2019 interview that he once shared a flight with Tupac and felt so unsafe he carried a knife and fork as makeshift weapons. But Suge Knight wasn't buying it, claiming Snoop never even boarded that plane. Whether the story's true or not, it paints the picture of just how tense and fractured things had become between the two. The final interaction between them supposedly came when Snoop asked Tupac if he was going to Vegas for the Mike Tyson fight. Pac allegedly brushed him off cold, and that would be the last time Snoop saw him alive. Hours later, Tupac was gunned down in Vegas, passing days later from his injuries. After Pac's death, many thought Snoop would pick up the torch, keep Death Row's fire burning, and push the West Coast movement Pac had been fighting for. But that's not what happened. Instead, Snoop walked away from Death Row and started linking up with East Coast artists, including Diddy, the same figure Pac saw as the enemy. For die-hard West Coast loyalists, and for people like Blacc Sam, that wasn't just a career move, that was a decision that raised permanent questions about where Snoop's loyalty really lies. For die-hard West Coast loyalists, Snoop's post-Pac moves only confirmed what they'd been whispering all along. His loyalty was flexible. Napoleon from the Outlaws didn't sugarcoat it either. He's gone on record accusing Snoop of using public praise as a mask, saying nice things about Pac while sliding in subtle disrespect, the kind that only real heads would catch. According to Napoleon, it wasn't just shade, it was jealousy over Pac's reign at Death Row. Then we fast forward to the 2000s and 2010, when Nipsey Hussle rose up as the new voice of the West Coast. Nipsey didn't just admire Pac, he studied him. Every bar, every move, every business venture reflected the same independent grind, community focus, and authenticity Pac had stood for. To Nipsey, Pac wasn't just an influence, he was the blueprint. Victory Lap? That was Nip's All Eyes on Me. His $100 Crenshaw mixtape and the Marathon clothing brand? That was Pac's Own Your Masters energy brought into a new era. And through it all, Blacc Sam was right there. Not just as a brother, but as a partner, making sure Nip's vision stayed pure. Here's where the tension gets tricky. Despite Snoop's complicated history with Pac, he and Nipsey actually built a working relationship. Nip appeared on Snoop's 2009 album Malice in Wonderland on the track Upside Down alongside Problem. And in a twist that might shock some fans, Snoop even revealed in 2022 that Nipsey had ghostwritten for him, specifically the track 10 Toes Down. On paper, that looked like respect. But for someone like Blacc Sam, who keeps receipts and reads between the lines, the question might be whether that respect was genuine or just another case of Snoop playing both sides for his own game. On Snoop's 2016 album Kool-Aid, 3 verses came straight from Nipsey's pen. A collab that even sampled the 2002 street classic Paid in Full. When Nipsey was tragically killed in 2019, Snoop stood on stage at the Staples Center during the memorial, speaking like a brother in arms. He called their bond one of peace advocates and shared spirits, painting a picture of deep respect. Not long after, he dropped Nipsey Blue, a tribute track mourning their connection and honoring Nip's impact. Snoop even spoke on how Nipsey's death brought unity to the streets, how gang members who hadn't spoken in decades came together in the name of the marathon. That's why in 2020, the vibe still looks solid. Blacc Sam even pulled up on Snoop with a full marathon clothing care package, including the Uncle Sam OG strain. Snoop posted it on Instagram with the caption, "My nephew, Blacc Sam, pulled up on me today. Dropped off a package at the Marathon Clothing at Canna Farms 818. Uncle Sam OG TMC. It read like pure love, almost family." So what happened? How did we go from that kind of gesture in 2020 to what looks like public disrespect in 2025? The turning point might be tied to the controversies Snoop's been stacking up. Like we mentioned earlier, in January 2025, Snoop performed at a Trump inauguration event, a move that had longtime fans fuming, especially those who remembered him clowning Trump years before. To Blacc Sam, who's been committed to the same values Nipsey stood on, integrity, authenticity, and community first, that kind of political flip-flop isn't just a bad PR move, it's a sign you might not be built on the code you claim. The marathon continues wasn't just a slogan. For Nipsey, it was a code. A lifelong promise to stay locked in on your principles and keep the community first, no matter what. For Blacc Sam, who's dedicated himself to guarding that legacy like a vault, seeing Snoop make moves that look like he's trading integrity for a check, that might have been the final straw. But there's one more piece to this puzzle that circles us right back to the start. Big U. As we mentioned before, Big U, real name Eugene Henley, is a former gang leader turned heavyweight in LA's music and community scene. He had ties to both Nipsey and Snoop, but he also allegedly confronted Nipsey over a track back in the day. The exact details are foggy in public records, but one thing's crystal clear. Snoop's kept his relationship with Big U solid even after that alleged run-in. And to Blacc Sam, that's not just business. That's a slap in the face to Nipsey's memory. The parallel to history is almost too perfect. Just like Tupac saw Snoop's cozy ties to East Coast rivals as betrayal, Sam could be looking at Snoop's continued link with Big U the exact same way. From Sam's point of view, it's a pattern, a willingness to play both sides when the code says you pick one and ride with it. And that's not the only worry. As permanent administrator of Nipsey's estate, Sam's been meticulous about protecting his brother's image, music, and intellectual property. Snoop's history with copyright lawsuits, including heat over posting content without permission, could make Sam question if Snoop could be trusted to handle anything tied to Nip's name. Put it all together. The death row era loyalty cracks, the political U-turns, the Big U connection, and the risk to Nipsey's legacy, and you start to see why that 2025 footage didn't just capture a random cold moment. It was the weight of decades of choices, finally showing in public. Snoop's ongoing ties to Big U and his checkered history with handling intellectual property created the perfect storm, the kind of storm that could make Blacc Sam pull back from someone he once called family. That's why the marathon burger footage hit so hard. When Blacc Sam said, "If you're not taking action against those disrespecting Nipsey, you're not welcome," he wasn't throwing out some vague statement for the cameras. He was putting down a clear line in the sand, a line drawn in loyalty. And if you line up all the history we've walked through, it sure looks like Snoop might have stepped over to the wrong side. This moment isn't just about a cold look or tense body language. It's the product of decades of West Coast history, full of loyalty tests, shifting alliances, and personal codes. What we're seeing here is a generational clash in how loyalty gets defined in hip-hop. For OGs like Tupac and the ones still carrying his torch like Nipsey and Blacc Sam, loyalty is black and white. You're either with us all the way or you're against us. No middle ground. Snoop, though, he's always played the game differently. He's built bridges across regional lines, squashed beefs others never would, and evolved with the times. Over the decades, he's gone from death row's young gangsta to a household name. Commercials with Martha Stewart, Olympic performances, TV shows, endorsements. Snoop's become a pop culture juggernaut, a brand as much as an artist. But that evolution has taken him far from the raw street codes he once came up under, for better or for worse. Blacc Sam, on the other hand, has stayed close to the ground. He's kept his energy in the community, building businesses, protecting Nipsey's vision, and keeping creative control in-house. Directing videos for Nipsey's victory lap, especially last time that I checked, shows where his priorities are. Sam's not chasing daytime TV spots or crossover appeal. He's chasing authenticity, the exact authenticity he believes his brother lived and died for. And when that's your mission, anyone who moves in a way that feels opposite, they're no longer on your side, no matter how much history you share. This is where the divide gets crystal clear. Blacc Sam stands for the purest form of hip-hop, staying rooted in your block, your people, and your principles no matter the pressure. Snoop, on the other hand, has built a career on adapting and evolving, shifting with the industry while still claiming ties to where he started. Both mindsets have their wins, but they're oil and water when put together. That's why this tension, it's not built for easy resolution, if it ever gets resolved at all. Zooming out to the whole West Coast scene, the Blacc Sam vs. Snoop dynamic mirrors a bigger cultural split. The OGs, Snoop, Ice Cube, E40, have all found a way to ride the mainstream wave without drowning. Meanwhile, the newer generation, Nipsey, Roddy Ricch, and others, fought to stay independent, to keep their hustle free from major label control, and to give back directly to their people. Nipsey's Proud to Pay campaign and the Neighborhood Nip Foundation weren't just ideas, they were a blueprint, direct fan connection, full ownership, money reinvested into the community. And since Nipsey's passing, Blacc Sam has doubled down on keeping that blueprint alive through Marathon Burger, the Marathon clothing, and every move he's made to protect the brand and the legacy. So this beef, it's not just two names with history. It's two competing visions for what West Coast hip-hop should look like in the 21st century. Do you chase global crossover power like Snoop? Or do you lock in on your roots and keep the culture self-sustained like Nipsey preached? That's the real battleground here. And the answer's not clean, which is exactly why the gap between these two might never close. And if you think this story's already reached its peak, trust, the streets are watching for the next move. Blacc Sam's mission has never been in question. Protect Nipsey's legacy at all costs, guard every piece of his intellectual property, and make sure that anybody who disrespected his brother never sees a dollar or a headline off the Marathon name. That's his line in the sand, and he's not budging. Snoop's next move, that's the big unknown. He's been silent on the footage and on the growing talk that Sam's respect for him has faded. But silence is nothing new for Snoop. Back in the 90s, when the East versus West war was at its ugliest, he found ways to sidestep direct confrontation, sometimes at the cost of being labeled disloyal by the people closest to him. So it's very possible he'll try the same play here. Ignore it, let it blow over. But there's one factor that could blow the whole situation wide open: Big U. That alleged confrontation between Big U and Nipsey over a track isn't just a footnote. For Sam, it's the core of why Snoop's ongoing ties to Big U sting so much. If Snoop were to put distance between himself and Big U, maybe that could reopen the door to a truce. Then again, in LA's hip-hop scene, breaking ties comes with its own risks. The web of relationships runs deep, and every move sends a ripple. And this is where it gets even messier. Who else is going to get pulled into this? The West Coast scene is tight. Artists like DJ Mustard, YG, Ty Dolla $ign, and The Game all have bonds with both camps. Will they stay out of it, or will they be forced to pick a side if things keep escalating? And let's not forget Dr. Dre, Snoop's mentor and longtime collaborator. Dre's built his brand on staying above the drama, focusing on business and music instead of beef. But if the divide between Sam and Snoop grows wide enough, even Dre might be forced to navigate this minefield. Given Dre's close bond with Snoop and his status as a West Coast elder statesman, his voice could carry serious weight if he chose to speak on this. One word from him could calm the waters or tilt the balance. But there's another angle here: the business game. Blacc Sam isn't just holding down Nipsey's name, he's been building the Marathon into a powerhouse brand. The recent launch of Marathon Burger is proof that he's expanding Nip's entrepreneurial vision, turning it into something that can stand for decades. A public clash with Snoop Dogg could either boost that momentum by showing Sam's unwavering principles, or complicate things if the public sees it as unnecessary beef. For Snoop, the stakes are different. His money is spread across the globe: cannabis, wine, food, endorsements. His brand is bigger than music now. So a fallout with Blacc Sam might not dent his finances, but it could leave a mark on his standing in the West Coast hip-hop community that helped build him in the first place. And that's where the cultural weight comes in. This isn't just two men with a disagreement. It's a reminder that authenticity is still the heartbeat of hip-hop. No matter how the game changes, keeping it real still counts, especially in West Coast rap where the streets are always paying attention. Nipsey's focus on ownership, independence, and giving back wasn't just talk. It was a modern evolution of those same values the West was built on. By continuing that work, Blacc Sam is making sure those principles stay front and center in the culture, even as artists like Snoop branch off into new lanes. And woven through all this is a generational split. Snoop, now in his 50s, came up in an era where regional loyalty could mean life or death, where a beef between coasts could end in bloodshed. Nipsey, in his 30s when he passed, represented a new chapter, one that mixed street roots with entrepreneurial moves, aiming to own the game instead of just playing it. The new generation came up in a different world, one shaped by the internet, streaming, and the corporatization of hip-hop. They watched the game turn into big business and set out to create alternative blueprints for success. Blacc Sam, carrying Nipsey's vision forward, is the face of that perspective. So at its core, this isn't just Blacc Sam versus Snoop Dogg, it's old school versus new school, adaptation versus purity, and two completely different visions for where hip-hop should go next. Now, the question everybody's thinking: Can these two ever reconcile based on everything we've laid out, from Snoop's perceived disloyalty to Tupac, to his ongoing ties with Big U, to the fundamental clash in how they move? It doesn't look likely anytime soon. These aren't surface-level issues. They're deep-rooted, tied to decades of history and personal codes. But if hip-hop has taught us anything, it's that the unthinkable can happen. Who would have guessed Nas and Jay-Z would shake hands after Ether and Takeover? Or that Ice Cube would reunite with his old NWA brothers after walking away over money and betrayal? Time has a way of softening even the hardest grudges. Shared love for Nipsey's legacy could, in theory, bring Sam and Snoop to the same table one day, but it would take both men stepping toward the middle. And right now, neither looks ready to make that move. In the meantime, this isn't just a personal feud. It's a mirror of hip-hop's longest-running tension: commercial power versus street credibility. That struggle has been here since the culture's birth, and it's not going anywhere. And for West Coast fans, the question isn't just whose side are you on, it's what kind of hip-hop do you want to see win? So where do you stand? Are you with Blacc Sam, the guardian of loyalty, authenticity, and Nipsey's legacy? Or with Snoop, the pioneer who put West Coast culture on the global stage, but made compromises along the way? There's no easy answer. And that's exactly why this beef has everybody talking. This isn't a simple case of right versus wrong. It's a clash of values, each side standing on a code they believe in. Sam's stance is rooted in protecting his brother's name, his music, and the principles Nipsey lived by. Snoop's stance is about adapting, surviving, and thriving in a game that's constantly changing, all while keeping a connection to where he came from. The truth is, both are right, but in different ways, and that's why they're on opposite sides of the same street. This feud is bigger than the men involved. It's a snapshot of hip-hop's eternal push and pull, loyalty versus evolution, underground credibility versus mainstream reach, old school codes versus new school business models. West Coast hip-hop has always been built on both community and competition, respect for your roots, and a drive to expand beyond them. Blacc Sam has carried Nipsey's vision forward through business moves like the Marathon Clothing and Marathon Burger, keeping ownership and community at the center. Snoop, alongside Dr. Dre, shaped the G-Funk era, opened doors worldwide, and turned himself into one of the most recognizable figures in pop culture. Whether they ever find common ground or not, both have already carved their place in history. The bigger question is, what does our reaction to this say about where we think hip-hop should go next? Because this isn't just about Sam and Snoop, this is about us. How we define authenticity, how we measure loyalty, how we value success. And that conversation, it's not ending anytime soon. So now it's your turn. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Whose vision do you believe in more? And while you're here, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next breakdown right here on BarzBuzz.